Hello, welcome everybody. Uh, can you hear me? Welcome to this session. This is the GTG Bhopal session. And if you can hear me, can you please type a yes in the comments? Okay, okay, cool, very good. Okay, all right. So I hope you all are doing well in this lockdown period. And let us start with the Flutter 101 session. I'm Asim Akhtar. I'm a member of Google Developers Group Bhopal, and we will be having the session on Flutter 101. Today's speaker will be Mr. Jaideep Prasad. He's here. Hello, Jaideep.
Hi guys, I
Hello. Hi. Jaideep, thank you very much for joining us. And at a time like this, we are very happy to see you here. And I hope that we all will learn from this session. And Jaideep has been involved as a contributor with the Flutter team from Google. And he has also worked with FOSSASIA in GSoC 2019 and AOSSIE in GSoC 2020, and he has also worked as a software development engineer at Release My Ad. So, uh, thank you again for joining us. So, let us start with the session. So, over to you, Jaideep.
yeah,
And
sure. Let me quickly share my screen with all of you.
yeah, sure.
Cool. So let me know if you guys can see my screen. Just type in yes if you can see my screen in the comments.
Yes, it is visible.
Cool. Cool. So let us quickly go through some basic introduction and then we'll jump on to today's session. So first of all, welcome to today's session. Welcome and glad all of you could join in this difficult times and trying to learn something interesting, learn something more which is useful for your careers, and it might benefit you guys in your software development careers while you build products and contribute to different companies, organizations, right? So
Mm.
today we will be having a Flutter 101 session. So here's just some small introduction about me, what all I have done in the recent past years. So you can just quickly get a look here. I won't elaborate much here. Currently, I'm a GSoC developer at Aussie, and I've also contributed and worked with the Flutter team at Google on the official Flutter SDKs over GitHub, right? So you can always follow me up, follow my work at GitHub. My GitHub handle is at the rate JDD, right? So you can follow that stuff over there as well, right? So let's jump into today's session and get started with Flutter and learn what the hell is Flutter actually, how we can get started and make beautiful products, make beautiful apps with Flutter, and contribute and uh, take it as a part as our professional careers, right? So first of all, for the most beautiful website which I've found across for all frameworks, the Flutter website is really has really intrigued me quite a lot, and I always recommend everybody to go through the Flutter website because it really has some awesome resources as well to from where you can learn more, and also it helps you get started, right? Is so since I recommend it, so I'll for today as well, I'll firstly go to the website, and from there onwards we can navigate, right? So let me just quickly go on the link, right? Right, cool. So as you can see, this is the Flutter website. As you can already see, this whole website has been built by actually using Flutter, right? So since Flutter has multi-platform support, so uh, it's really quite a great framework to get started, because it doesn't have any foundations like with Flutter you can only develop for a particular platform, and you won't be able for some XYZ platform. It always gives you the cushion to develop applications across various different platforms, right? So as you can see here, like all these captions going through, like you can see that we can develop beautiful apps, and we can develop productive apps which can be got into production pretty fast. As you can see, the production time is pretty less. You can develop quality apps in very less time. And also, as you can see, you can target all the different platforms, be it mobile, be it web, be it desktop. And currently also the Flutter team is working on embedded applications in the website, right? So yeah, so those basic captions get you started, or give a very basic idea about what Flutter is all about, and how we can use it, right? So as you all might have known that Flutter is SDK is a framework offered by Google. So Google maintains it, Google has developed it for all developers to use, right? So as you can see, so first of all, let's before beginning with the Flutter, working with Flutter, we must know like why it's came into existence, and why should we even learn Flutter, right? Like there are various other frameworks, be it React, be it Angular, be it Ionic, whatever. But why in the first place we should choose Flutter, and we should get started with it, right? So I'll walk you through some very major points which has caused the very development of Flutter by Google. Like Google developed Flutter for like for some of these very main reasons, which were some common developer crisis causes that developers told in surveys that they face these difficulties. So first of all, at the very first caption which you all can see here is the fast development speed, right? So what's actually this fast development, like what do we actually mean by that? So compared to any other a framework, any other SDK which we use for developing various products, the speed at which we can develop and build Flutter applications is pretty less, right? So like we can develop Flutter applications at quite a better speed compared to all other frameworks. That's a very major point when we talk about competition across various platforms, right? So how do we actually see the fast development in action, you say? So if you when you install Flutter and integrate it with your development environment, which you popularly call it as IDE. So popularly Flutter is used with Visual Studio Code or Android Studio. So in wherever you use it, so Flutter gives us an option called hot reload, right? So if you are coming from a background where you have developed Android native applications or iOS native applications, like for making even a small change, you need to rebuild the whole application from scratch, right? So suppose you are making a small change like a text change, you have to restart the Gradle build, and it takes the hell lot of time for building the application, and then you can see the change, right? So that's quite a pain. That was quite a pain for developers, and developers complained about it. And Google thought, why don't we make it accessible to developers for with a benefit that they can develop applications at a quite a faster speed, right? So with the hot reload option, as you can see here, it if you make a small change, suppose you have the hot reload option, like if you can see the GIF over here, like the person makes the code change, hits this hot reload button, and the change gets up and running on the application, right? So that pretty much increases our productivity and the speed at which we develop the applications, right? So that's one point about fast development, right? So we can make quality applications not only by like they won't just, it won't be all about development, but it also be, it also depends upon how fast you can develop a particular application, right? So Flutter, has that takes that point in mind, and has been developed in such a manner that you can develop quality applications by, at a record time, right? So 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 that's a very interesting point for Flutter, compared to other frameworks with all the hot reload features and hot restart features. Like, it doesn't take that much time to, make small changes show up on your app. Once you make a small change, once, even it's a small or a big change, nevertheless you hit the hot reload or hot restart buttons on your IDE, or even in your terminal there are commands, right, for hot reloading or hot restarting. So once you hit that button, once you hit that command, your change quickly shows up on the application screen, right?
in an
So yeah,
instant.
that's yeah. That's a point about fast development, right? So next up we have, so another feature of Flutter is that, compared to other frameworks, the UI rendering, right? So it's pretty awesome, right? With all the available ready-made widgets Flutter provides us, right? So we can use those widgets and, develop quality apps with a beautiful looking UI at a record time, right? With the fast development speed, as we saw earlier, we use that to our benefit. And, as you can see here, like, see this particular app in this GIF, right? So you can see how beautiful it's looking, how expressive the UI is, right? This application can be made with Flutter at a very record time, right? Like, you can easily, within some like half an hour or an hour or so, you can easily create such an application with all the ready-made widgets available with Flutter, right? So as you can see, this particular application is called Reflectly. If even if you search this app on Play Store, you will be able to install it and see the functionalities of the app. I recommend you to install it because it really, shows you how beautiful Flutter can be in terms of developing applications for devices on Android or iOS. So you can see that this particular application is an award-winning application, which was made with Flutter by one of the contributors of the community, right? So you can always take a look at that. This app is available on the Play Store. You can just take a look at that, and you will be able to see, like, how beautiful the application is, and how expressive all the UI components are, right? So all those, and even all the widgets, you will see all the components you'll see on the screen are mostly made from, all the ready-made available widgets, all the ready-made available components provided by Flutter, right? So since I've been talking much about widgets, we'll learn, like, what the hell this widget is in terms of Flutter, right? So it'll clear your mind once we get into coding. I'll explain what a widget is like in terms of Flutter, right? So for now, you can think all this particular like this particular icon assets, this particular, this text boxes, and all this sliding up panels, all these are actually widgets. But for now, you can think all these as your app components, right? So all these things are made with Flutter in a very record time, right? This particular UI, which is pretty expressive, is built with Flutter in a record time, right? So next up is a point which also, like, is a pain for all, the cross platform frameworks, right? So what's that like? For a cross platform framework, it becomes necessary, to give cool native experiences like across different platform. For, like, a cross platform means that particular application will run on, like, different operating systems, right? Suppose that particular application will run on Android as well as on iOS. So the performance need not to be compromised, right? So Flutter takes care of that. As you can see here, this particular uh, application is running on an Android device, and this particular application is running on an iOS device, right? So as you probably guess, like, you can see as well that the performance is not compromised, right? As you can see, like all the interactions, all the animations, all the components which you can see over on both the screens of the devices, both are pretty much exactly the same, and the performance is as smooth as possible, right, for both the applications, right? So there hasn't been any compromising on in terms of native performances across applications. So Flutter takes care of that. As you can see, Flutter's like, even it's there are some example apps that are, you know at this link, you can, you even go, like, while I'm talking, you can even go to this particular website and see how well the website is working on your like web browsers, and even you can go to this particular link to see all the available example apps made by the Flutter community, to to see and take a taste of how the apps you will be making will look like at the end, right? So that's a pretty cool thing, right? So the native performance isn't compromised. So what did we saw on those 3 points, right? So first point was the fast development feature. Like, we had this hot reload and hot restart features, which uh, eases the developer's life. Like, if for making small changes, you don't need to restart your whole build and wait for the build to finish and then see the changes. So with the hot reload and hot restart features, the changes can take place and show up on your application instantly, right? So that point was all about fast development speed, which which really eases a lot of developers workload, right? So next was expressive beautiful UIs, right? So we can, with the help of Flutter and without using any external libraries and stuff, we can develop beautiful UIs with Flutter in record time, or without any other third party integration, right? And the next point was this, right, the native performance. So the native performance is very smooth across all types of devices, and the performance isn't compromised at any device. So with the same application will run exactly the same way across all devices, and that won't affect your product, right? So it won't be like your product's application on iOS is having some problem, but your Android app is running smooth. So Flutter takes care of that. It gives the exactly same smooth experiences across all the different kinds of devices, right? So that point was about native performance. So we saw all these 3 points contribute very much to Flutter's very existence, like why it was created. And talking about the industry, like, even like this web, even the webs when this website was created, these all these big companies were already using Flutter in their softwares, right? So as you can see, here are some big names which were already using Flutter once it was launched, right? So that isn't what I'm trying to say, is that isn't a trouble at all. Like, if you are thinking that if I learn Flutter, are there enough opportunities in the industry, like for a Flutter developer? Absolutely yes. There, even today, apart from all these big companies as well, there are very like many startups as well, many other companies as well, looking for Flutter developers, because they develop cross-platform applications, and they feel Flutter really has been rising enough to give it a go and make a product with it, right? So that isn't a problem anymore. Flutter has been ever rising, and even top companies like these, as well as other companies as well, use Flutter in their production, and it really has paid them off, right? So 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 that's a pretty some basic ideas about Flutter. Like, here you can see some official newsletter announcements if you go to the website. recently they released Flutter 1.17. So you can get all the launched features from here, get to know about what all things have been added, or what all updates have been made. Like as you can see, all these animations here. These are, we don't need any third party library integration at all for doing all this. It's pretty much available already with Flutter, once you get to know how to use it, and you can make all these animations pretty easily once you start working with it, right? So as I said, Flutter has been ever rising. So with its multi-platform support, it has started giving, you like support on the web, support on the desktop, and even they are working currently on embedded applications on a website, right? So talking about embedded applications, like even in this particular website, let me show you. Like as you can see here, you don't need a any ID for working, and seeing a live Flutter application in your in a website is pretty cool, right? So as you can see, this particular ID has been embedded inside this website, and here is some code, as you can see. So this is some Dart code written for a Flutter application. So if there is this run button, this reset button, and this format button. So if the format button is basically just to format the Flutter code, the Dart code written here, right? So let us just run this particular code and see what output do we get. Like how will the application look like? See, the code isn't at all that very much lengthy. It's just properly formatted, and short lines, understandable lines, with proper animation controllers as well, which is a bit at a high level, which you'll get to know understand once you start working with Flutter. So as you can see, here we are, the app has been rendered on the website application. So as you can see, it's saying click me. So if I click, see, animation is occurring, right? So as you can see, that without any third party library integration, we can easily have such good animations. And even this is a very basic animation, we can have much more cooler animations and stuff over to our application, as you will probably see when you install Reflectly on your devices from the Play Store. There, so it really has some very cool UI features as well as animations with it, which you can uh, see and understand what Flutter can be used for, right? So
Jatin,
this is
we
what.
have a few questions from the audience. So if you
Yeah,
can
sure.
take. So Shrey Chaubey asked that please do tell us about Adobe XD integration with Flutter and how good it's for us. So I think we'll be taking that question at the end. And Jatin Gupta asked, are we going to move forward in developing mobile applications with Flutter? Yes, we are going to do that. So we will be having the Flutter basics, we will be having a live demo, and at the end we will be sharing the resources to all of you as well. As well as we also will be having a Q&A session. And I would like you to answer this question from Nikhil Jain. Which language we should use to learn Flutter?
Yeah, so as you probably guessed it, we'll be using Dart for Flutter, right? So Dart is the language which we use for coding Flutter applications in our development environment. So if you can get a basic idea about Dart, so that will be pretty helpful for you, right? So Dart is the language for your answer. Dart is the language which we use for developing Flutter applications, right?
Okay. Okay, I guess that's all for the questions. So we can move ahead with the session now.
Sure, sure.
Thank you.
Cool. So now let's get started with making some live progress with coding some applications. Like, since it's a 101 session, we I won't like dive into much complicated applications for you all, like integrate with animations. Like as you probably see here, like this particular application is has animations integrated with it. right? So as you also, if you see here, with this particular click, animation occurs, right? So there must be some animation integrated in the application, right? So animation is yet again another concept which you should, try to learn while developing, because it really gives you upper hand in terms of beautiful experiences with Flutter, right? So if you have access to a, internet, and are on a system, like you should go to the dartpad. So there's a website called dartpad.dev, right? So if you're able, you can go to this particular website. We'll be using this online ID for coding some of our Flutter applications today, right? So if you can go to this particular website, let me know. We can start from there, right? So I'll give you guys a minute so that you can navigate to this particular website. So here is the URL. If you want to know, it's dartpad.dev. Uh, so you can go to this particular website, and we can get started with coding some basic applications today, right? With coding. Cool, cool. So I'm thinking most of you guys are able to go to this particular website and uh, get ready for some live demo applications to code, right? So if you can see here from this drop down where we had the samples written. So some like some 6 or 7 some sample applications already drops up. Draw like first up we have some basic Dart applications. So these aren't actually Flutter apps, but they are basically some Dart programs which helps us to understand about Dart. So you can take a look at these as well to get a basic idea about Dart, and then get started with Flutter as well, right? So if you can install Flutter on your local machines, like for installing here in this website, we already have the whole installing instructions on your computer, right? So if you can go to this particular link, you'll get all the instructions to install on your operating system, irrespective of whatever operating system you're on. They all have the specific instructions to it. So once you create like you install Flutter, and then take care of all the dependencies, and then you make your first Flutter project. So for making a first Flutter project locally, like on your system, like there is a terminal command as well for it. It's called Flutter Create, right? So once you run the Flutter Create command, it the Flutter SDK on your machine automatically generates a sample application on your machines, right? So that sample application is nothing but, let me show you what that sample application is. So once you run the Flutter Create command, the SDK generates all this code for you, and gives you this particular application on your whatever device you have connected uh, with your laptop, right? So if you run that particular code which was generated by the Flutter SDK when you created your project, you'll get this particular application up and running on your devices, right? So as you can see, we'll walk through this application in a bit, like after we code our first demo application. Like since this particular application has some things to understand, so after getting a very basic idea about going about making our first application, we can always dive into this, and we'll walk through this entire application, and try to understand what the statements are and how they are used with respect to our application, right? So let's dive into our first application. So let me just quickly go to the dartpad.dev. uh, Let me just quickly open up a demo. Cool. Let me just clear the whole screen up. Right. So before starting with coding our application, so even if you're a general programmer, you have not got any developing experience in the past with Android or any other framework as well, be it React or any other thing. So even in any program, the first thing which we usually do is import some basic libraries. Like even if with respect to programming, we import some basic input output libraries, like which has some ready-made functions for printing stuff on our screen, taking input from the user, which has some ready-made functions for us. So we usually import those functions from a particular library and then get started with it, right? So similarly here as well, we'll import the material library, which will use which from where we'll get all our components for developing our application, right? So will import that particular library and then get started, right? So let us import that particular library. So 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 uh, if you are on an id, if you just simply press the control plus space bar, you'll get a drop down, right? So so since I have already opened up here, I'll simply copy the library import and paste it here. So this will be a pretty much similar uh, thing which you'll get. Hello, hello, can you hear me? Guys, if you can hear me, just type in yes. I think there was some issue with the network.
Yes, you are audible, man.
Okay, okay,
Mm.
cool. So as I was saying, the first statement is a very important statement. We import a particular library, and then we get all our ready-made widgets, all our ready-made facilities, which we'll be using to develop the this application, right? So now that we have imported the material library from the Flutter SDK, so now we'll be able to use its available whatever widgets it provides us in our application which we create, right? So for starting any program, the main thing which code first is the main function, right? So whatever code is written, we put in the main function that gets executed, right? So similarly here as well, we'll code the main function as well, and s- uh, try to understand and put the stuff which is going to be run in the main function, right? So as you can see, here is the main function and I'm using a lambda expression here. And now see, now here from here you'll understand the importance of the material library. So this particular library has a function called run app in it, and which takes in a parameter uh, of the particular class which will be coding for our application, like the particular layout of our application. So let's just pass a particular name for now, right? So from there we can code that particular class, right? So for simplicity, I've kept it my app. Even in the sample demo app which we create, the name of the class will be my app only. Like even if you see here, like it's kept as my app because it's simpler to understand the our like the class name is simpler to understand, right? So now let's just move forward, coding the particular class of our application and see how we can lay out our application, right? So here, just as in any particular program, be it with any language, be it Java or anything, we code a this is how we code a class. So after we give the class name, we usually extend we usually extend from some super class, right? So from for here, for our Flutter application, we'll be extending from a super class called Stateless Widget, right? So there are two types of widget. So now talking about widget, like if I can tell you from here, like if in this up and running application, as you are able to see, like even this particular app bar, this particular text is a widget, right? So in layman terms, every component which you see on a Flutter application is termed as a widget, right? So even this particular text, which like this text of the app bar, it's a widget, right? So even this particular floating action button, which with this icon is a widget, right? So all the components on a particular application, we term them as widgets, right? So that's what a widget means when we talk in terms of Flutter, right? So now moving on to the stateless widget which I was talking about. So there are basically two types of super widgets. Like one is one type of widgets are the stateless widgets, and the other type of widgets are stateful widgets. So basically, what's the difference between them? So the stateless widgets are basically immutable. You can't make those widgets won't be able to change themselves dynamically uh, upon user interaction, right? So all those kind of widgets comes under the category of stateless widget. And on the other hand, the widgets which can be changed dynamically, like maybe like this floating action button, like, right? So if I click on this particular button, this particular text changed, right? So it changed something upon user interaction, right? So that those kind of widgets come under stateful widgets, right? So which are which are able to interact with the user and change accordingly, right? So 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 these are the two types of widgets which will be working with when it comes to Flutter. So for our sample application, let's just go with the stateless widget, because here we won't be making anything like interactive with the user, right? So since it's our first demo application, let's just get on with it already, right? So let me just extend it from the stateless widget class. Right. Right. Cool. So as you can see, we have extended from the stateless widget. So now it's showing some error, right? So now, so see, this is something very which is available in all of your IDs as well. So if some method implementations are missing for a particular class after extending from some super class, right? So like maybe we are missing some implementations, overridation of some super methods, we can easily see that particular error and try to implement that particular method, right? So as you can see here, similarly, here it's showing us it's missing some concrete implementation of the stateless widget.build super method, right? So here what we need to do is basically override the particular build method which it's showing us, right? So let me right. So yeah, so here we what we did is basically we resolved the error which it was showing us, that we needed to override a super method from the stateless widget, right? Which is nothing but the build method. right? So what this build method is all about, right? So as you can see, this is a method prototype, and it returns, a widget type object, right? So what it basically does will, code our entire layout of our application here, and all that entire layout itself will be a super widget, right? So since that entire layout will consist of widgets, as I said, that each and every component in a Flutter application is a widget. So since the entire layout will consist of widgets, the whole layout can be termed as a widget, right? So 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 for that, since it's already showing us a information that we need to return a widget type from this particular method, we'll get on with it and try to resolve that, right? So let us just go about it, right? So first up, what we can do here is, we uh, return a very, which is a very common widget which we use when it comes to Flutter application, is the very much parent widget, which is called the material app, right? So this is a widget which we use as a parent for our application, right? So as you can see here, uh, it's an application, or it's a widget which we are returning from the build method, which will serve as our parent layout structure for our application, right? So from here we can see what all properties we have for the particular widget, right? So each widget will have some definite properties with it, right? So which we can take use of, and lay out the entire layout of our application, right? So as you can see, here we have a bunch of different properties for the material app widget, which is serving as our parent of this particular app layout, right? So so even if you don't remember all the properties, you can always take use of the id shortcuts to take a look at all the available properties for a particular widget and use them accordingly, right? So first up, let us use the title property, and give this a name, right? So let us give it a any name, right? Right, so as you can see, we use the title property, and give this particular widget a name, right? Cool. So similarly, we can use different properties for a particular widget and make use of them, right? So now you might understand how all these properties link up for a particular widget. Like, for the title is basically the title of the application. Like, whenever you run the particular application on your device, the name of the app which shows up on your maybe Android or iOS device will be this very text over here, right? So that will be the name of your application, right? So let's move forward and see what else we have here, right? So now there are a bunch of other properties as well. So as you probably see, that we can use whatever we want with respect to the type of thing we are trying to achieve here. So let's give a theme to our application, right? Yeah. So so here we'll be giving a theme for a particular application, uh, right? So let's just code it for now. Yeah. Cool. So as you can see here, there is still a particular information which it's trying to tell us. Like, this very much handy when it comes to debugging a particular application, right? So as you can see here, it's saying that it actually takes a parameter of build context type, right? So we need to provide a parameter called of type build context, right? So we'll do that for here, so that it takes care of that issue, right? Cool. So now that we have provided the required context for this particular method, so this context is basically nothing but the context of the application, so that we can change states of our application which we'll be learning from the other sample. Like for like once we click a particular button, the text changes here on the screen, right? So that's pretty much nothing, but the state of the application changes, and which in turn changes the text on the screen, right? So there we actually use the context attribute and uh, go with that, right? So here, as we were continuing, we'll be giving a theme to the particular application, right? So now, since theme data, so as I told you, everything in Flutter is called a widget. So theme data being a widget as well will have some properties in it. So let's just see what all properties we have here. So as you can see, there are a bunch of theme related properties here with colors, schemes, different styles and everything. So here let us give a primary swatch for our uh, application, right? So let's just give it a colors dot green, right? So let's just keep it like the theme of our application, let's keep it as a green. So you always you can look up all the available properties here, and uh, customize your application accordingly, like according to your use, right? So if even if you want to give a background color, you can just simply use the particular property, particular attribute here of that particular widget, and provide the necessary value for that attribute, right? So that's about different properties which are available for a widget, right? So after providing a theme to our application, giving a primary color which will be used by the application. So now let's lay out for the app, right? So so next let's navigate like what all properties do we have here, right? So now seeing all, going through all the properties, I think it's time for us to uh, lay out the actual core application, like the core feature of core component of our application, right? So so for that, we'll be taking help of the home attribute, right? Because this being the parent widget being a material app, it has this attribute called home, where we can provide a proper layout for the application which it will render while we build the application, right? So now in the home attribute as well, we'll be passing a widget, right? So since everything is a widget and the entire layout itself will be a widget, so here let's use the scaffold widget. So all these widgets, you can learn about all these widgets, like you don't need to memorize anything. You can learn like why these widgets are used and where these widgets are used, right? From the official documentation as well. So for scaffold, we primarily use scaffold for laying out something in a orderly manner, right? So scaffold can be thought as of a skeleton for our application, right? So so most of the apps primarily use scaffold as their parent skeleton, and inside it there are a bunch of other components, bunch of other widgets which are used to make the app more beautiful, right? Similarly, we have laid out the scaffold widget here, and let's see what all properties we have for the scaffold widget, right? So as you can see here, we have the app bar, right? So let's give our app a app bar, right? So since, like you see, all these attributes are already there, so you don't need to code anything very much sophisticated for developing an app bar of your application. You can make use of this particular property and develop different components on your screen, right? So we'll use this particular property, and then make our app bar for the screen. So let me just go ahead and do that. Yeah. Even this a particular app bar which I passed into this app bar property, this app bar is a widget as well, right? So being a widget, it will have its own properties, right? So let's see what all properties it has. So as you can see, there are a bunch of this all these different properties. We can give background color of this particular app bar. We can give it a elevation. We can give it a icon theme and everything, right? So for now, let's give our app bar a title, right? So the title is something which appears as the main the primary focus of the app bar, right? Like here in this sample app, you can see this Flutter demo home page is the title of the app bar, right? So the title itself will take a value of a widget, right? So here as well we'll be passing a widget called a text widget, right? So even this text is a widget which takes a string attribute, right? So here we can give the app name, right? So let's just say hello world, right? So this will be on top of our app bar, right? So what we can basically understand from here, like up to this, is that basically we have got a scaffold, which is the which renders the basic skeleton of our application. Then we have got inside it, we have the app bar property, which takes in the app bar widget, which itself in turn has this title attribute. And we have got the the we have passed a particular string here, which will show up as a text widget on the app bar, right, in the form of a title, right? So you can always give this particular text widget various other styles as well. Like being a widget, it will have its properties of its own. So like you can see here, we have the style attribute here, where we can you know put the text style of the widget, of our text widget. Like now the text style itself is also a widget, as you'll probably guess. And it will have its own properties. So let's give our text a color. So we'll provide it as colors.white for now, right? So now so this is pretty much very, I guess it's pretty easy to understand, right? So we have got a skeleton set up in the form of a scaffold which has a app bar in it, right? And then we have got the text in a text widget in it, which has got a text called hello world. And inside it, and that particular text has got, we have given a particular style to it, with a color which is of white, right? So let's run this application and see like what's the state, right, of this particular application with respect to our you know code, right? So as you probably see, so you can easily relate this particular screen with this particular piece of code, right? So so nothing super rocket science involved. So just you can easily get the structure from here, and easily relate to with your app screen, right? So that's how easy understanding Flutter code is, and developing Flutter applications is as well, right? So now let's code further. Like let's add some more widgets to it, and see how they all look up, how they all stack up in our application, right? So after so this whole widget is a app bar, right? So as you can see, we have uh, developed the app bar. Now it's time for us to lay out some more widgets in the application. So now coming out of the app bar, we again take a look at all the available attributes of the scaffold widget, which was the parent widget. So now it's time for us to lay out the actual body of our application, right? So we'll use the body attribute of the widget, and let's pass in a widget called a center widget, right? So passing in the center widget here, and the center itself will have some properties. So as you can see, so it has this child property which we'll be using, and we'll be passing a widget called a container, right? So all these are widgets which are very much common to use, even in applications which are produced, like even in the application reflectly, you'll be all the components you'll see are mostly made from all the available default widgets which come out of the Flutter material library. and all these widgets are available pretty easily and ready made without integration of any other stuff, right? So these are very basic widgets. You'll have a more a list of a bunch of more widgets available with the material library, which you can use while developing more complicated applications, right? So now,
Jaideep, we are adding some more widgets here. So can you please show us a documentation of these widgets and how should we read them? Actually, there's a question from the audience. If you can look it up.
yeah, yeah. So what's the question? Please do show up. Okay. So you're asking like how will we get to know like what all available widgets are there in the material library, for instance, right? So
Yeah. What all widgets
yeah.
are available and how we can utilize them and what are the attributes that can be used in that widgets.
Yeah, so of course, so like always you can, so they are just a a Google search away for you, right? So if you simply type in Flutter material widgets, you should probably get the link to the official documentation, right? So as you can see here, the first link which comes up are the official documentations from provided by the Flutter team, right? So as you can see here, they have provided, as you can see here, we just use the app bar widget. So for detailed information of a particular widget, you can move into, you can tap on this link, and here you will see, as you can see here, there is this detailed explanation of each and every attribute we were using, as like with respect to our code. Like as you can see here, we use the title attribute, and right. So there are a bunch of other attributes as well. So all these attributes you can learn from here. And even there is this embedded application which you can take a look at. And for any widget, like here I am showing you for the app bar widget, you can take a look about that, about any widget in that case, right? So they are just a Google search away. Or maybe if you even want a specific web URL for for referring to, you can just go to the api.flutterdev website, and at there, inside the Flutter directory, you'll be able to see all the available libraries. Like here I have particularly opened the material library, but there are a bunch of other libraries as well provided by the SDK, which has its own components, which you might be able to take a look at, right? So here I have navigated into the material library, and I can easily take a look at all the available widgets the material library has, right? So as you can see, see here we have the material app, the scaffold, and a bunch of other widgets as well, right? So always you can navigate to this particular website and take a look at all the available widgets and all the available attributes pertaining to a particular widget, right? So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Cool. Cool. So now, after we saw like laying out the main structure of our application inside the scaffold, we have used the attribute of called body, and there we have passed a center widget, which in turn has a property called child, where we have passed a container widget, right? So now that we have passed a container widget, the container being a widget will have its properties of its own, right? So let us look at all the available properties it has. So as you can see here, we can tweak all this bunch of different attributes. We can provide a width, we can provide a height to this particular container. So let's just go ahead and do that. Let me just give it a height and give the container a width as well, right? So once I do that, so now our container is, so the container can be thought as basically nothing but a a box, right? So it'll render up as a box up on your screen with all the design tweaks which you have made over and will be visible up on your screen, right? So that's what basically a container is all about, right? So now that we have provided a height and width to that particular container, let's see what all options we have. So there is this property called child again, as similar to the child property which we had in center, right? Center widget. So now taking you making use of the child property in container, let's put a particular child inside that container, right? Being a box, it should have something inside that box, right? So for now we'll just put another center, right? So inside a particular box we are trying to structure something which is kept at the center of the box, right? So just think the structure as of this. So first up we have the center. So the center, what this center widget will do, will take the layout at the center of the screen, right? Understandable. So after it has done that, we are trying to code a container here. So it will basically show us a container at the center of the screen, and inside that container we are trying to place something which appears at the at the vertical and horizontal center of the box, right? So that it looks good, right? So that's why we have put a center widget inside the container, so that the contents inside the container appear i- at the center position, right? So now be giving a center uh, widget, it has the child attribute as we saw earlier. So inside with making use of the child attribute, we'll pass a text widget with it, and let's just type in a sample string, as we already saw how to use a text widget above in the app bar title as well, right? So let me just quickly give it a style as well, uh, right? So let me just quickly so all this stuff we have did above, right? So here similarly, whatever text widget we have used for the app bar, we are using the a similar text widget for our container with content as well, which will be placed at the center of our app screen, right? So 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 this should so what so after seeing the structure of the code, what we can assume is that basically what it will be doing is that it will lay up a first of all, it will lay up a skeleton of our application, which is very much which will serve as the layout of our application, and inside that particular layout there will be an app bar, right? So as we already ran that application up to that point of time, we already see the particular app bar on upon our screen. And probably as you guys might be seeing that there is this particular banner called debug, right, which appears up here. So right, so even you can remove that particular banner. So it basically just showcases like it's handy for developers to remember that they are currently developing the application and it's not in the release state. So it's handy for developers to remember while uh, you know developing a particular application, right? Yeah. So what you can do here. So there is a attribute called show debug, debug show check mode banner, right? So always you can take use of the help of the IDE, and e- if even if you forget the name of the particular attribute, you can always take use of that attribute and use that particular attribute in your app, right? So here I think there is some error. Oh, right. So this particular attribute isn't available in the scaffold widget, so it's actually available in the material app widget, right? So always you can look up whatever all the available attributes are for a particular widget. Like even if you just hit the control space bar, you'll get to see all the available particular widgets available in the for a particular widget, right? So here we don't have the debug show check mode banner, so it actually is available in the material app widget, right? So now that we have got the attribute set up, we can pass a value to it. So if so here we have passed the false value, so to let the SDK know that we don't want the to show the debug mode banner, right? So So that's about this particular property and this particular banner which is, available up on your screens, right? So yeah, so that's about this deep particular debug banner, right? So now that we have everything set up, we have the app bar, we have a particular title in it, with the text widget, with a particular, style with it. And then again, inside the layout of the application, we have a centered container, which itself, in turn, has got this center text widget, right, with a particular style in it, right? So let's just run this application and see how this shows up on our, a console, right? So after running this application, right, so I haven't given any color to the particular container, right? So this is something which, while developing, you can easily understand, like the color of the container is white, right? So if you change the color of the text, you should be able to see the particular text, right? uh, which should be available on your screen, right? So you can always tweak the colors. And here, let's just give the container a color, right? So for our particular application here, let's just give it a green color, right? And then try to run it. Yep. So as you can see here, so we just needed to tweak a couple of attributes for a particular widget, and we could, achieve whatever we wanted to achieve with that, right? So I hope, like, if you guys could follow with on your own web browsers as well, like, along with the session, like, you should be having something similar on your screens up and running, right? So so i i think, so if you guys can see something similar, like, yeah, so I think someone is saying hello world text is in container is not visible. So maybe I think you should, give it a style, like, you can change the color of the particular text. Like, I'm opening the particular screen, so I'll be opening this particular screen for a couple of minutes. You can take a look, at the code, and you should be able, after you run the particular application, you should be able to see this particular screen up on your consoles, right? So for people who are having some trouble, like maybe the text is not showing up, or maybe the container is not showing up, so maybe you just need to, you might have forgotten to, give these particular attributes. Like, maybe you have forgotten to give the color attribute to the container, maybe you haven't given a style to the particular text widget. So maybe you should take care of that, right? So I'll keep this code opened up. You can just see here and run on your own web browsers, right? Yeah. So once you do that, if you have any questions, you can hit me up on the live chat. I and Asif will sort it out. I'll keep this code screen open for you guys so that you can take a look and, replicate it on your own web browsers.
Jaideep, there's another question from Apoorv Pandey. Will there be something like responsive design in Flutter as well?
Yeah.
There's a question from Apoorv Pandey. Will there be something like responsive design in Flutter as well?
Yeah, so whatever apps you build with Flutter, so Flutter already takes care of the responsiveness, right? So while like being an Android developer for developing apps for across different screen sizes, it's a great pain. Like you need to maintain different layouts, right, uh, for different screen sizes. But with Flutter, the same exact application, like talking about our application here, like if you just simply copy and paste this code on your local id and build a Android application for it, this design will exactly be responsive and adjust itself with your Android mobile screen, right? So maybe this this is expanded, maybe on your Android phone it will appear something similar to this, right? So it will respond to your screen size and will change accordingly, right? So majorly with Flutter you get pre-built responsiveness, right? So that was one feature. Even behind the existence of Flutter, it gave us responsive and expressive UIs for our applications, right? Yeah, so Apuv is saying because right now we have defined the width and height of the text widget as 100 exactly. So since here we have hard coded some height, you can always make use of the entire screen height and screen width. Plus for that, we have this media query property. So with the media query, you can you know take use of the media query and get the actual screen size and of the width and height of your screen, right? So from there you can so this particular media query will have this height and width properties which you can, so maybe you can just for simplicity purposes, so since it's a web, we are working on a web id, if you are working on a a local uh, id building applications for Android or iOS, you can just take a look at the media query property. So with the media query, what it does is it gives us the actual height and width of the device which on which we are running the application on, right? So like if you just simply type for media query Flutter, so you'll get the API link, like the documentation for the media query class, and you can take a look how to get the particular size and particular width of the screen and use it accordingly, right? So as you can see, we can you can take use of this off method which takes the context, and from there you can get the size and of the device which on which you're trying to run the application on. Yeah, cool. Yeah, so Jatin, you're saying how to apply the same on in Android Studio. Like if you install Flutter on your local machine, like Android Studio has got a plugin. Like if you go to the extension section in Android Studio, from there they have a Flutter plugin which you can install, and uh, it comes with a bunch of features like hot reload and hot restart, which are visible upon your IDE, which you can take use of, and in that particular ID itself. Yeah, so Shrey is saying if you could, tell us about Adobe XD. So Shrey, for that, well, I need to have a we need to open up a ID, because for that we will be using a Adobe Xd plugin, right? So recently Adobe Xd released their plugin, which where it gave us the options, to take our designs, take our beautiful designs, and convert directly them into Flutter applications. So, but I personally felt that that particular plugin isn't quite as effective in actual productive product apps. Like if you want to make something releasable on the Play Store or on the App Store, I particularly won't recommend that. Like it still needs some improvements since they recently released it. So it still requires some more work that needs to be done before we can actually use the Adobe XD plugin in our releasable applications in our products, right? So your views of Flutter versus React Native. So yeah, so talking about a competition, like see, React Native has been going on for a long time now. Like th- various companies have already a large portion of their products built on React Native, right? So they already have a lot of products on React Native, right? So the demand for React Native developers are there. And also since Flutter has been rising, so the rise in the jobs of the industry as well have been increasing, right? So it all depends upon your choice of work, right? So if you're much familiar with React Native, if you're more comfortable with React, you should go for that. But if you have got a taste of Flutter, like personally I'll say that if you haven't got a experience on both the frameworks, like if you start with Flutter, I can definitely assure you that you'll get a hang of it and you'll want to continue with Flutter, right? So so talking about competition, I won't say much because both the frameworks have got products in the industry. But it all depends upon your choice of work, right? Yeah. So a bit overview on API integration, please. So yeah, so there are various plugins for integrating API uh, in a Flutter application, right? So there is a plugin which is a replicate of the retrofit plugin in Android, like the retrofit library, which we can use in with Flutter, right? So you can take a look at that. Like I don't remember the exact name of that plugin, but I think it's something starts with D. Like you can just search it up, like the retrofit replica of Flutter. You should get a plugin uh, up on your screens, right? So you don't need to for the plugin integration, you don't need to remember anything. You can just simply make a quick Google search about whatever feature you want to integrate in your application, and you should be seeing a effective plugin right in front of your screen, right? Just as we saw that if even if I wanted to know more about a particular widget, I just did a simple Google search and I got all the information in the world in front of me, which I can take use of and learn from there, right? So you even you're talking about API integration. If you like if you're working with different APIs, like even Flutter has specific plugins for different APIs, right? So to make your life more easy, right? You won't need to customize or tweak stuff extremely. You can just search it up with respect to your need, and you will get a desirable plugin in front of you, right? Yeah, cool. So cool. I'll just keep this screen for a couple of more minutes so that you guys can see replicate this and make sure you get a similar application up and running. And if you're facing a difficulty, just type it in the live chat, right? I'll wait for one more minute to for you guys to see if you uh, can replicate this particular application. Like even for this debug banner which we show, we removed it from here. We just simply took use of the debug show check mode banner. attribute of the material app widget, and we got it to false, and this debug banner got removed, right? So you can take use of that as well, right? So also if
Jaideep,
you,
there's another interesting question. Is
yeah, yeah.
the same code base for across a mobile app and web page?
Is it the same code base? Exactly, exactly. So that's the beauty of Flutter. Even this particular code base can be used, to make a embedded application as well. Like in a if you have a website, you can use, like, the Flutter team is working on the official release of that. But this is what I'm trying to say, is that you can use this exact piece of code across all the platforms, irrespective of whatever you are thinking, right? Maybe it's a web application, maybe it's a desktop application, maybe it's an Android or iOS app. Irrespective of whatever, you can use this exact, like, you can just copy paste this entire piece of code, and it should be able to run the same way on all your across all different platforms, right? So that should answer your question.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, cool. So I'll keep the code open for a couple of minutes. You can, so even if you have lost track while I was coding, you can just take a look at this and try to understand how the layout has been set up. Like here is the, the build method. You can take a look at this build method and, try to relate. Just you can see the structure is pretty simple. Even if you can understand some pretty basic code syntax, this should be understandable for all of you, right? So even if you have a very basic programming knowledge, but have some basic understanding of applications, like, you should be able to relate with it, right? So I'll keep this build method opened up, so that even if you haven't coded it yet, like, you can easily take help from here and code it on your own web browsers, right? So I'll be taking up questions as well if you have any.
Yeah, there's one more question. Is it necessary to have knowledge of any of native development apart from Flutter in job perspective?
Like, if like, say, if your product has some features which are, difficult to make it, like, which are difficult to develop it in terms of cross platform, you need to make some changes in the native code. Like, suppose you're making something super complex, like, suppose you're making some video conferencing app, like, maybe with a lot of backend server integrations, right? So that kind of stuff, needs some basic knowledge, like how to, write some native code on for Android and iOS separately, so that, the plugins which you are using with your Flutter can work with the native applications whenever you run and build the applications on them, right? So yeah, so I'll say some pretty basic knowledge across for native is helpful. But if you're, getting started, or, making applications, or making some straightforward applications, I don't think that's much of a requirement for you, right?
Okay, all right.
Yeah. So cool. I'll open up the my build screen. So if you guys haven't coded the application yet, since it's our first application, you feel free to, replicate the entire code. And since it's very easy to understand, I think you'll get a good taste of how a very demo application looks like in Flutter, right?
Okay, so if anybody has any more questions to ask, please do so. Otherwise, we'll be concluding the session now. Okay, Jaideep, I think that is it for the questions, I guess. We don't have any more questions coming in. And so, thank you so much for the session, Jaideep. It was a wonderful session. And thank you for your time and all the resources that you have given us. And this was the first Flutter 101 session we had from Jaideep Prasad. So these 101 sessions were like standalone sessions in which we give you an initial knowledge about what that technology is. So this was a standalone session. And if you haven't joined any more of our groups yet, we'll share the link to join our groups for future engagements. And well, thank you again, Jaideep, for this wonderful session. I hope everybody liked
My
it. And thank you for everything. Like at a time like this, we didn't think that we would be able to conduct this session, but you were the one that was steadfast that no, we can do it.
Cool.
Thank you,
Bye,
Jaideep.
guys.
Okay, bye.